The rooftop garden of the Dahlia Hotel glittered under a string of Edison bulbs and the soft glow of the city skyline. Wine glasses chimed, laughter floated into the night, and the guests, marketing executives, startup founders, and cocktail-dressed sycophants, clustered around the center of the space. There stood Riley Monroe, the radiant star of the evening. Dressed in a sapphire jumpsuit with gold heels that echoed like applause on every step, Riley held a glass of champagne aloft, commanding attention as easily as she always had. Her hair curled like waves around her shoulders, her smile sharp as glass. This was her promotion party. She had just become the youngest director of brand strategy at Stellar Mark, a prestigious media and marketing firm known for its flashy campaigns and glossy rooftop affairs. "And here's to beating expectations and proving the doubters wrong," Riley announced with practiced charm, raising her glass higher. Polite laughter spread among the crowd like ripples on still water. "And to my little sister Harper," she added with a smirk that curled just slightly too far, still on her journey, still figuring it all out. "But hey, at least you're trying." This time, the laughter was a little tighter. Some guests chuckled, others glanced sideways. A few offered Harper sympathetic half-smiles. She didn't flinch. She just took a slow sip from her soda glass, the cold bite of citrus grounding her like a meditation. Harper had heard worse from Riley before. Since childhood, her sister had always claimed the spotlight. She needed it. She fed on it. Riley had been the prom queen, the team captain, the early corporate climber. Harper? She was the one with quiet eyes and notebooks filled with code. She wore simple jeans and sneakers, came to events alone, and slipped out before the photo ops. She didn't need the spotlight. She was building something in the dark. Their mother, elegant in pearls and sipping Prosecco, glided up beside Harper, brushing imaginary lint from Harper's lapel. "Sweetheart," she whispered, not unkindly, "why don't you try networking a little tonight? Riley's friends are so well connected. You might find someone who can help get you started." "I'm not looking for help, Mom. I'm doing okay," Harper replied gently. Her mother gave a wistful sigh, the kind that weighed more than words. "You're always okay. That's the problem. No fire." That one landed harder than it should have. But Harper didn't react. Because she knew something they didn't. 1 month earlier, she had inked a deal with a mid-tier venture firm, an agreement that quietly positioned her as the majority stakeholder in a new tech entity, Threadline Systems, a SaaS platform designed to streamline onboarding and internal compliance for fast-scaling creative agencies. It had taken her 2 years of living above a laundromat, working out of a single folding table, eating dry noodles, and coding through the night. Her platform had launched quietly. But within 3 weeks, 3 design firms signed up. By week 5, Stellar Mark signed a licensing agreement. Riley's company. Harper had watched it unfold with a quiet, slow-building satisfaction. She wasn't listed as CEO or founder, her name was hidden behind an alias, H. Lennox, and the client-facing representative was a former university friend, Theo, who served as director of operations. Harper didn't want fame. She didn't need acknowledgement. She wanted the system to work, and for the people who underestimated her to eventually feel the ground shift beneath their feet. At the party, someone called out for a photo. Riley swept an arm around Harper's shoulder, her perfume sweet and sharp. "Say cheese." The photographer called. Harper smiled, an armor-crafted expression. Just before the shutter clicked, Riley leaned in and whispered, "Don't worry, Harper. One day you'll find your thing. Until then, enjoy being a part of my story." Click. The camera flashed. "I already have," Harper murmured under her breath. That night, she walked alone through the lamplit streets, the party's noise retreating behind her like a bad memory. Her phone buzzed. It was an alert from the Threadline dashboard. "System live at Stellar Mark, Department, Branding and Strategy." Riley's department. Harper tucked the phone away and smiled, not in triumph, but in anticipation. A week later, Theo forwarded an internal memo from Stellar Mark. New system implementation. All department heads to begin using Threadline systems for quarterly compliance and payroll processing. Training materials enclosed. Harper didn't react. She simply leaned back in her chair, surrounded by rows of monitors and a half-empty coffee mug, and stared out her apartment window. The moment was coming. The one where Riley would log in to approve bonuses and reimbursements, and see a subtle watermark at the bottom of every interface. Powered by Threadline Systems. Lead Systems Architect, H. Lennox. And, if she followed the system credits deep enough, a small help tag that read: for internal technical support, contact harper.b@threadline.tech. No one was ever supposed to look there. Unless they were curious. Harper knew her sister well enough to know curiosity wasn't just a possibility, it was inevitable. And when Riley finally looked, that would be the beginning of a very different story. The first notification came on a sleepy Tuesday afternoon. Harper was working from a corner table at a quiet cafe nestled between a bookstore and a vintage record shop. Her laptop screen glowed softly in front of her, a sea of open tabs and terminal windows. Her tea had gone cold. Ping. The notification was subtle, almost innocuous. Unusual access pattern detected. User, RM Stellar Mark HQ, Admin Panel Exploration. Harper leaned closer. The system pinged her any time a new user poked around too deeply, especially into back-end functions. It was designed as a security precaution, but also a breadcrumb trail, one she'd left intentionally. This time, the user in question was RM, the initials she knew too well. Riley Monroe had entered the Threadline system. Harper clicked into the log viewer. The access pattern was curious. Riley had moved quickly through the basics, reviewed compliance dashboards, clicked through the user interface guide, but then she'd wandered, venturing into parts of the system most department heads never cared to see. Then she saw it. Tab opened, System Attribution Logs. Section accessed, Architectural Contributors. Listed names: H. Lennox, Lead Systems Architect. T. Garcia, Director of Operations. E. Witt, UI/UX Development. Harper's heart picked up slightly. The tab wasn't sensitive. But nestled beneath the contributors list was a small, barely visible tooltip. For internal support, contact harper.b@threadline.tech. There it was, her name. A digital whisper. Not proof, not outright ownership, but enough to trigger suspicion. And Harper knew Riley. She wouldn't let it go. Curiosity was the one emotion her sister couldn't suppress. She closed her laptop slowly, letting the screen go dark. Her reflection flickered across it, calm, composed, but underneath the surface, anticipation buzzed like static. 2 days later, Harper stopped by their parents' house to deliver some tax papers for their father. The house was quiet, filled with the familiar tick of the antique wall clock and the distant scent of cinnamon from a forgotten candle. She heard voices from the kitchen. Riley's voice. Sharp, skeptical. "I'm telling you, Mom, it's the weirdest thing. Our new system. Threadline? It lists some guy named H. Lennox as the lead developer. But the internal support contact. It says Harper.b. I mean, come on, it can't be our Harper. She barely posts on LinkedIn." Their mother laughed lightly, stirring something on the stove. "Oh darling, you're reading too much into it. Your sister's never been that tech-savvy. I mean, Harper couldn't even fix the Wi-Fi when it went out last Christmas." Riley chuckled too, but it wasn't mean, just dismissive. "Yeah, I guess. Still, weird coincidence." Harper stepped into the kitchen then, as if on cue. "Hey," she said. "Didn't mean to interrupt." Riley spun, too quickly, bumping her hip on the counter. "Harper. We were just talking about you. Good things, I hope," Harper said with a small smile. "Always," Riley said, her eyes scanning Harper's face just a little too closely. "Still doing your freelance programming stuff?" "Something like that," Harper replied, grabbing a glass of water. "It's been busy. The air shifted. Riley didn't press, but Harper saw the flicker of something behind her eyes, something new. Not superiority. Uncertainty. That evening, Harper logged into Threadline's admin portal from her apartment. Her dog lay curled at her feet, a soft playlist hummed in the background, and a tab blinked for attention. New support ticket, subject, verification of platform architect. Message. Can you confirm whether Linux is still an active developer? Just curious. r.monroe@stellarmark.com. Harper stared at the message. She didn't respond. She tagged it as resolved and locked the thread. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about recognition. And Riley needed to arrive at it on her own terms. A few days passed before Harper received another update from Theo. Text from Theo. FYI, your sister just requested full system analytics access. Want me to approve? Harper smiled to herself. Reply. Let her in. She's looking for something. Theo. What happens when she finds it? Harper. That's when the real story begins. The breakthrough came on a crisp Wednesday. Harper was back at the cafe, sipping a warm latte this time, when her screen lit up with a flagged alert. Protected file accessed, user, RM file title, formation documents, Threadline Systems Incorporated. Her breath caught. It wasn't just a glance at code or contributor lists. Riley had made it all the way through. She'd followed the trail down to the locked cabinet, and opened it. The file showed everything. Threadline Systems Incorporated. Founders. Harper Lennox, Chief Systems Architect, 52% ownership. Theo Garcia, Director of Operations, 48% ownership. Incorporated, 2 years ago. Initial prototype name, Skane, developed on Harper's laptop, in a studio apartment above a laundromat. It was all there. She'd also seen the prototype logs, emails, support threads, lines of development history tracked back to Harper's personal server. There could be no mistaking it now. Harper had built the system Riley used every day. Harper was the reason Riley got her bonuses on time, why onboarding had streamlined, why their department finally ran like a well-oiled machine. There was no more hiding. And Harper didn't feel triumphant. She felt complete. That night, she didn't work. She didn't refresh dashboards or run tests. She sat on the couch with her dog, city lights flickering through the window, and listened to the quiet. She thought about all the dinners where Riley's achievements were celebrated in glowing detail, while her own efforts were met with a casual "still working on that coding thing?" Now, her name, Harper Lennox, was printed at the bottom of every file Riley had opened. And that was only the beginning. The message came the next morning, short and strangely hesitant. Riley, hey. Got a sec to talk? Harper stared at the screen, phone resting on her kitchen counter beside a half-eaten bagel. The words shouldn't have shaken her. But they did. It wasn't the request that surprised her, it was the tone. Not boastful. Not casual. No exclamation marks. Just tentative. Harper, sure. Riley, you ever heard of a company called Threadline? Harper smirked faintly, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Harper, sounds vaguely familiar. Why? Riley, it's the new system we're using at work. Threadline. It's good. Really good. Fast. Clean. Kind of brilliant, actually. There was a pause. Riley, just wondered if you knew someone who worked there. Harper didn't answer right away. She let the silence breathe. Harper, hope it's working well for your team. Riley, yeah. It is. And that was it. No more probing. No confrontation. But Harper knew her sister too well. Riley never let go of things she couldn't explain. Her curiosity was a slow-burning fuse, and Harper could hear it sizzling. A few days later, Theo forwarded another update. Theo, Riley just submitted a request for archived dev history. Harper, approve it. Theo, you sure? Harper, yeah. She's ready to see it. The next afternoon, While Harper worked from a co-working space downtown, the system pinged again. Access record. User, RM file opened, company founding archive. Location, Stellar Mark HQ. Time, 3:47 p.m. Riley had made it through. She'd seen everything now, Harper's name, ownership percentage, and the very first system prototype. She would have read the email logs, the version history, and the time-stamped GitHub commits. She might have even seen the early UI sketches Harper had scrawled out on the back of napkins, scanned and attached to her digital journal. There was no mistaking it anymore. It was Harper. And it had always been Harper. But Harper didn't feel like celebrating. There was no fist pump, no tears, no rush of glee. Only a strange, deep calm. Like air filling a vacuum that had been quiet for too long. That night, her phone buzzed again. "Riley, can we talk?" Just 3 words. But they carried weight. "Harper, yeah. Name the place." They met the next morning at a cozy conservatory cafe just a few blocks from their parents' house, a place they'd once frequented together as teenagers when their worlds still touched. Harper arrived first, ordered chamomile tea, and sat near the windows where soft light filtered through green ferns and glass panes. Riley was already there when she arrived, seated at a small corner table, nursing a cappuccino. Her trademark lipstick was absent, her heels replaced with flats. A notebook lay open in front of her, untouched. She looked up. "Hi," she said quietly. Harper nodded. "Hi." A long pause stretched between them. Harper sat. The quiet wasn't awkward, it was necessary. "So," Riley began, exhaling. "You're the reason our system actually works. I guess you could say that. You built Threadline. You own it?" Harper gave a slight nod. "Co-founded it. I'm the lead architect." Riley shook her head slowly, blinking hard. "And I've been walking around for years telling people you were freelancing from your bedroom." "God. You didn't ask," Harper said simply. "And I wasn't building it for applause." "No," Riley said softly. "You were building it because you believed in it." There was another silence. This one hung heavier. "I mocked you," Riley said, eyes dropping. "At my party, I made you the punchline." "I remember," Harper said. "You just smiled. You didn't say a word." "I was waiting." "For what?" "For you to see the whole picture." Riley pressed her lips together. "Well," she said after a long moment, "I see it now. And I feel like an idiot." Harper leaned back in her chair, fingers wrapped around her mug. "You were never supposed to feel small, Riley. I didn't build this to take something from you." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Harper paused, then answered truthfully. "Because I needed to know I could build something on my own. Without anyone's validation. Even yours." Riley flinched, not from anger, but recognition. "I think. Deep down," she said, "I always knew you were doing something important. I just couldn't understand it. And because I didn't understand it, I ignored it. Or worse, belittled it." Harper didn't respond. "I was performing," Riley continued. "I thought if I looked successful enough, loud enough, everyone would believe it, even me. But it was all shallow. And then you just built something real." Quietly. Harper met her gaze. "You're still successful, Riley. In your own way. That hasn't changed. But it should have come from something deeper," Riley said, her voice almost a whisper. "Not from needing to be the center. From actually wanting to create value. You did that. I performed around it." The words weren't easy for Riley. Harper knew that. But they were real. And that made them enough. "I want to change," Riley said finally. "I want to learn. From you, if you'll let me." Harper tilted her head, studying her sister's face. "You mean that?" Riley nodded. "I do." A long breath passed between them. "I have a proposal," Riley said, almost shyly. "I read the beta description of your Insight Analytics module. The one for internal team dynamics? I think I could help with it. Not for credit, just to contribute." Maybe I could learn something in the process. Harper blinked. This wasn't the same sister from the party. This wasn't the woman who had used the spotlight to define her success. This was someone who had seen the truth, and wanted to step into it with humility. "All right," Harper said at last. "Let's see what you've got." The next morning, Harper opened her inbox and found an email. Subject: Proposal Draft, Insight Module Integration. From Riley Monroe. Attached was a 5-page PDF, detailed, thoughtful, well-organized. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was clear she had put effort into it. At the bottom, in small gray text, she'd written, "Built with inspiration from Harper Lennox." Harper sat back in her chair, staring at the screen. Maybe Riley didn't just see her now. Maybe, for the first time, Riley was learning from her. The Threadline offices weren't flashy, just clean lines, bright glass walls, and the quiet hum of purpose. They occupied the 12th floor of a modest building tucked between creative agencies and deco startups in downtown Seattle. No grand lobby. No marble fountains. Just an open layout where ideas flowed faster than coffee, and no one cared how many followers you had, only what you brought to the table. It was in this space that Riley Monroe took her first real step into Harper's world. Harper had extended an invitation, not a grand one, just a simple, honest request: "We're workshopping a prototype for the Insight tool next Thursday. Come if you're serious." And Riley came. She arrived 10 minutes early. No designer heels, no fire engine red lipstick, no entourage. Just a navy blazer, clean flats, and a notebook tucked under her arm. Her hair was tied in a neat braid, the kind Harper hadn't seen since they were teenagers sneaking out for late-night donuts. Inside the conference room, a dozen members of Threadline's core team, developers, behavioral analysts, systems architects, sat around a whiteboard-lined table. They were people Harper had handpicked not for charisma, but for capability. Riley entered the room and introduced herself simply. "Riley Monroe. Brand strategy at Stellar Mark. Here to contribute, not to pitch." There were polite nods. No one clapped. No one gawked. They just made space for her at the table. Harper watched quietly from the far end, fingers interlaced. She had told the team Riley would be attending as a guest consultant, nothing more. If Riley wanted their respect, she would have to earn it. And she did. She didn't interrupt. She didn't dominate. She listened, took notes, and asked smart questions, about behavioral data loops, about visualization modules, about how to ensure feedback mechanisms weren't just reactive, but proactive. When she offered input, it wasn't packaged in buzzwords. It was thoughtful. Real. After the meeting, Theo leaned in beside Harper and whispered, "She's different than I expected." Harper nodded slowly. "She is." That Friday, Harper received another email from Riley. Subject: Insight Pilot Follow-up. "Hey. I've been thinking about how companies usually treat internal feedback as something to contain, not something to cultivate. I think if we present Insight as a growth tool rather than a compliance shield, we could change the narrative. Attached are a few storyboard ideas. Let me know if they're useful. And thanks again for inviting me. Your team, they're the real deal. Riley." Harper stared at the screen, the cursor blinking at the end of that last line. They're the real deal. Not you're the genius. Not you're lucky to have them. Just genuine appreciation. Harper downloaded the attachment and opened the PDF. It wasn't revolutionary. It was honest. 3 clean slides. Concise sketches. Smart layout. No fluff. And that mattered more than brilliance. The following week, Harper and Riley met at Harper's apartment to workshop the Insight dashboard. The same dining table where Threadline's original prototype had been designed now held 2 laptops, stacks of notes, and half-eaten croissants from the cafe they used to visit in high school. They worked side by side. No tension. No pretense. Just rhythm. Riley didn't interrupt. Harper didn't retreat. They moved like collaborators, Curious, fluid, equal. At one point, Riley leaned back in her chair and sighed. I used to think success meant being the most visible person in the room. The one everyone listened to. Harper glanced up from her code. And now? Now I think it's more about impact. Quiet impact. Harper considered that, then nodded. That's a lesson most people don't learn until they've burned through their first empire. Riley chuckled softly. Maybe I'm right on time then. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her voice growing quieter. I think the reason I mocked you so much, she said, is because I was scared. I kept performing, hoping applause would silence the doubt. But you didn't wait for applause. You built through the silence. Harper didn't speak. She just listened. And when I saw your name on the threadline files, Riley continued, I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt small. Not because you made me feel that way, but because I realized I had missed something important about you. Harper turned to her. And what was that? That you were never trying to win. You were just trying to build something real. And you did. Harper let out a slow breath. Maybe now we build something real together. Riley smiled. I'd like that. The next day, Harper received an email from one of their investors, a quarterly check-in asking for updates on the Insight pilot and its collaborators. She paused, rereading Riley's proposal. Then she added Riley's name under strategic co-development. No edits. No rewrites. Just as it was. She didn't tell Riley. She wanted her to find it. 2 days later, her phone rang. Riley's name flashed across the screen. Harper? She said, breathless. Why did you put my name on the development memo? Harper smiled. Because you earned it. There was a long pause on the other end. Then. I've never had someone do that. Recognize me like that without expecting anything in return. I don't expect anything, Harper said. But I hope you keep going. Riley's voice softened. I will. That weekend, their family gathered for their father's retirement dinner. It had been years since Harper had been included in anything more than a holiday card exchange. Riley arrived early, helped their mother set the table, made quiet conversation instead of showy entrances. When their uncle asked how work was going, Riley simply smiled. I've been lucky to work with some brilliant people lately, she said. Including my sister. Harper looked up, surprised. Riley didn't say it loudly. She didn't need to. She said it like it had always been true. Later, they stood on the porch beneath a sky turning orange with sunset. They'll probably never fully get it, Riley said. Harper nodded. I know. But I do, Riley added. I get it now. She turned to Harper, voice trembling. When I read your name on that founding document, I felt two things. First, shame. For how I'd treated you. But second, relief. Harper blinked. Relief? Because I realized. You never needed me to validate you. You never waited for someone else to see you. You saw yourself. That's the kind of strength I wish I had. Harper looked at her, really looked. You have your own kind. Riley gave a small smile. Maybe. But I think I'm ready to learn yours now. And for the first time in their lives, Harper believed her. It was raining gently the morning Threadline hosted its internal showcase for the Insight module. No spotlights, no press. Just a clean glass room, strong coffee, and 20 curious minds from across departments. Among them stood Riley Monroe, now officially a strategic collaborator. She didn't stand out by appearance anymore, no vibrant blazers or dramatic heels. She wore a dark green button-up, rolled at the sleeves, and simple flats. Her hair was tied back, her makeup minimal. But her presence had never felt stronger. Harper watched her with a mix of pride and quiet awe. The sister who once measured success by the volume of applause now moved with a kind of purpose that didn't need an audience. She introduced her section of the presentation with steady composure, walking the team through the user-facing applications of Insight with clarity and humility. And then, something Harper hadn't expected. Riley turned to the group at the end and said, None of this would have happened without Harper. She built the foundation. She saw potential in this project, and in me, before I saw it in myself. There was a pause. Then applause. Not thunderous. Not theatrical. But real. Harper didn't smile for the room. She smiled inward, where something long buried finally settled, recognition, not forced or faked, but earned and reciprocated. A week later, Harper received the usual quarterly system update. Payroll processed. Employee records updated. Threadline Systems internal alert. Routine. Except for one detail. Riley had just received her first collaborative bonus under the new project, and at the bottom of her payslip, in quiet, unassuming font, read: System generated by Threadline Systems. Lead architect, Harper Lennox. Oversight, H. Lennox, strategic input, R. Monroe. It was the first time Riley's name appeared in official capacity. Not as a nod. Not as a favor. But as a peer. Later that afternoon, Harper dropped by the office just to feel the hum of it all, the soft noise of ideas becoming systems. As she walked past the floor where Riley often checked in, she didn't pause. She didn't need to. Moments later, Theo caught up with her in the hallway. She saw it, he said with a crooked smile. Harper arched a brow. Her name? Yeah. Stared at the bottom of the page for a long time. Then she printed it. Harper chuckled softly. Wanted to be sure it was real. Theo nodded. Didn't say anything. But I think she's still processing. Let her, Harper said. She'll come when she's ready. That evening, Harper was curled on her couch, sipping warm tea and rereading feature feedback notes when her doorbell rang. Riley stood there in jeans and a hoodie, no makeup, no performance, just holding a folded payslip in one hand. She stepped inside without fanfare and sat on the couch. This, she said, placing the printout on the table. This hit different. Harper nodded. I knew it was you, Riley continued. But seeing your name right there, on something permanent, it shook me. Harper leaned forward. I figured it was time. You could have kept it anonymous. Like before. I could have, Harper said. But this isn't about hiding anymore. Riley exhaled deeply, resting her arms on her knees. I kept reading your name over and over. And it made me realize. I was never the main character. Not the way I thought I was. Harper stayed silent. You built something extraordinary, Riley whispered. And I mocked it. I thought I was climbing the ladder while you were stalled at the bottom. But you weren't stalled, you were building your own staircase. Harper looked at her. I never needed to win against you, Riley. I just needed to stand on my own. You did more than that, Riley said, reaching into her bag. I was going to give this to you eventually. But now feels right. She handed Harper a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Harper. You didn't need to show up to prove your worth. But you did anyway. And now I see what I refused to see for too long. You're not in my shadow. You were always your own light. I'm proud of you, not just for what you've built, but for how you built it. I'm learning because of you. And I'm proud to call you my sister. Riley. Harper folded the note slowly, her fingers gentle. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just sat there, two women who had finally stopped performing, stopped defending. Just being. A few weeks later, Threadline hosted a quiet industry panel on ethical feedback design. It was a small venue, but respected. Harper was invited to speak. And to her surprise, she asked Riley to join her. Not as a guest. As a co-presenter. The room was full of startup founders, product managers, and tech consultants. Riley stood beside Harper on stage, composed and clear. She didn't speak in buzzwords. She spoke in insight. In lessons learned. And when she closed her segment, she looked to the crowd and said, I used to think leadership meant being seen. Now I know leadership is about what you build when no one's watching. The room applauded. Harper didn't need to look at Riley to feel it, she knew. That night, They walked the same path back to the rooftop bar from Riley's promotion party all those months ago. The string lights were still there, but the air felt different now. No red dress. No toasts. Just 2 drinks and a moment of reflection. Riley raised her glass. "To the sister I once underestimated," she said softly, and to finally seeing the full picture. Harper clinked her glass. "To both of us, where we've been, and where we're going." They didn't need to say anything more. Because the truth had already done the speaking. And in that truth, they had found not just respect, but something stronger. A bond rebuilt through humility, growth, and the quiet power of being seen.